6 boxes, 6 servers in a rack, each with its own little status light, each light wired to its own pager. 5 of those 6 boxes are doing work that one of them already does, not in some future migration. Today, in the version of Postgres you already have installed and are already paying to run, 3 in the morning, 6 different time zones, 6 different engineers woken by 6 different alerts. The cache engineer, the search engineer, the document store engineer, the vector database engineer, the queue engineer, and whoever still understands the actual database. 6 rotations, 6 dashboards nobody fully reads, for work that one box, one, has been quietly capable of doing for years. You called this maturity, polyglot persistence, the right tool for every job, a serious architecture for a serious company. It was complexity you could have deleted. This belief did not come from nowhere, and the people who taught it to you were not fools. Rewind to roughly 2010, 2011, 2012. The term was polyglot persistence. The slogan was, use the right tool for the job. And in that era, it was correct. It was genuinely good advice. Because in 2011, Postgres could not do these things. You wanted a fast key value cache, Postgres had no answer, so you reached for Redis. You wanted full-text search that didn't fall over, Postgres full-text existed but was primitive, so you reached for Elasticsearch. You wanted schemaless documents, Postgres had no real JSON type with indexing, so you reached for MongoDB. Vector search for embeddings didn't exist anywhere, because the use case didn't exist yet. And a durable job queue inside Postgres meant hand-rolling locks that deadlocked under load. So the architects of that decade did the rational thing. They picked a specialist for each problem. Redis for speed, Elastic for search, Mongo for documents, a dedicated broker for queues. And the slogan hardened into doctrine. A mature system uses many specialized stores. The slogan outlived the conditions that made it true. Because while everyone was busy collecting specialist databases, Postgres spent 15 years quietly absorbing every one of those jobs into the core engine and its extensions. The advice from 2011 got carved into stone. The software it described kept moving, and almost nobody went back to check whether the reason still held. So let's check, one box at a time. Let's see exactly which of your 5 specialist systems Postgres has already replaced and the exact feature that does it. Here's the stack we're auditing, the thing you call your architecture. 6 rows, 5 of them are about to disappear. Let's go. Box 1, Redis. You brought it in for caching, for sessions, for pub sub, the things that need to be fast and don't need to survive a crash. Here's the part nobody told you. Postgres has a table type for exactly that. An unlogged table skips the write-ahead log entirely. No WAL, no replication overhead, no fsync on every write. It is not crash safe, and that is the whole point, because neither was your Redis cache. You were already willing to lose this data on restart. Postgres just lets you say so out loud. And the other half of Redis, pub sub, the part that notifies workers something happened, Postgres has shipped that since before Redis existed. Listen and notify. One connection subscribes to a channel, another publishes to it, and the payload arrives in the same transactional engine that holds your data. That is caching, sessions, and pub.sub. Box 1, gone. Box 2, Elasticsearch. Let me guess the objection first, because it's the only real one. But mine has typos. Users misspell things. Elastic does fuzzy matching, and I tuned that relevance over 2 years, and I'm not throwing it away for a SQL index. Fair. That is the strongest argument against this replacement, and Postgres has one answer, the pgvector trgm extension. Trigram similarity. It breaks text into 3-character chunks and measures overlap, so Postgres still finds Postgres. That's the hard case handled. The easy case, the one you actually stood up an entire Java cluster for, with its own JVM heap to tune and its own split brain failure mode. So users could type words into a search bar. Postgres has had that in the core for years. Convert text to a tsvector, query it with a tisquery, index it with gin. Fuzzy matching and full text, in the database that already holds the documents. Box 2, gone. Box 3. MongoDB. This one's quick because you already half know it. You adopted a document database because some of your data is schemaless. Postgres has jsonb, binary JSON, stored and indexed with gin. Watch. Containment with the at greater than operator, field extraction with the arrow operator, real transactions, same database as your relational rows. There's nothing else to say. Box 3, gone. Box 4, the vector database. This is the new one, the AI one. Last year, somebody on your team shipped semantic search or a RAG pipeline, and the default move was to stand up a dedicated vector database, a whole separate system, a separate bill, a separate thing to keep in sync with your real data. You did not need it. pgvector is an extension. You get a vector column, an HNSW index for fast approximate nearest neighbor, and the cosine distance operator, the angle bracket equals. The embedding lives in the same row as the document it describes. No syncing two systems. No ghost vectors. No, the vector store thinks this document exists, but Postgres deleted it last week. That's 4 boxes gone, which leaves the 5th, the one everybody's afraid to touch. Box 5, the message queue. You run a separate broker so background jobs don't get processed twice by 2 workers grabbing the same task. The thing you actually needed was a row lock that skips rows another worker already holds. Postgres has had it since version 9.5 for update. Skip locked. Each worker grabs the next available job, locks it, and every other worker silently skips past it. No double processing, no broker, if your concurrency is measured in tens of workers, not hundreds. Push past 100 workers hammering the same table, and Postgres starts doing things a dedicated broker handles in its sleep. Multi-sacked contention on the lock metadata, heap bloat that turns a few megabytes of live jobs into tens of gigabytes of dead tuples, auto vacuum falling behind the churn. The pattern works. The pattern has a ceiling. And for most teams, you are nowhere near that ceiling. You are running an entire broker for a workload that peaks at 12 concurrent workers. So, box 5, almost gone. And that almost is doing real work. Hold on to it, because the whole back half of this video lives inside it. 5 boxes, 5 extensions or built-in features, 1 engine. So, if the features have existed this whole time, why is this still hard? Why did nobody pull the boxes out? Because everybody priced this wrong. They thought the cost of 6 databases was 6 bills. Licenses, instances, the line items in the cloud invoice. So they argued about whether Redis was cheap. Of course Redis is cheap. That was never the expensive part. Here is the mechanism, and I want to make it concrete before I make it abstract. A team ships a feature. User signs up. The database row gets created. The welcome email goes onto the queue. 2 systems, 2 operations. The database commit succeeds. The queue publish fails. Silently. The row exists, the email never sends, and there is no rollback that spans both. So someone writes an outbox table, jobs written to the database inside the same transaction, then a separate process that drains them into the queue, which now needs its own failure handling, which now needs reconciliation, which now needs idempotency keys. So the same welcome email doesn't fire twice when the drainer retries. None of that code is a feature. Your users never asked for it. It exists purely to compensate for the fact that you split one truth across 2 systems. So here's the abstraction, and now it has weight behind it. Operational complexity is not additive. It is multiplicative. 6 systems is not 6 times the work. Each new store adds a failure mode that interacts with every other store. It adds a consistency boundary you have to defend. It adds a query language and a tuning model, Redis eviction policies, JVM heap sizing, Mongo's index quirks, the broker's ACK semantics that one more human has to carry in their head. It adds a version upgrade path that can break on its own schedule. And it adds, literally, one more reason the pager goes off at 3 in the morning. The total cost of ownership of one transactional source of truth isn't lower because it's cheaper to license. It's lower because there is one failure model, one backup story, one mental model, and one place where the truth lives. When something's wrong, you know where to look. That is the entire game. Polyglot persistence didn't make your system robust. It distributed your single point of failure across 6 of them and told you that felt like engineering. Now I have to be fair, because if I'm not, the comments will be, and they'll be right. Postgres is not magic. There are real cases where you should run the separate system, and pretending otherwise is just the same dogma flipped around. The pattern is simple. You split when you hit extreme scale, or you have a dedicated team. One or the other. If you have neither, you are not in this paragraph. Redis, the real one, in memory, doing sub-millisecond reads at millions of operations per second. If that is genuinely your access pattern, an unlogged table is still going through the Postgres connection and the Postgres executor. At that volume, dedicated Redis wins, and it isn't close. Keep it. Elasticsearch at the scale of a product whose entire business is search. Billions of documents, faceting, relevance tuning as a full-time job, Postgres full text will hit a ceiling. If search is your product, not a feature of your product, run the search engine. That's not cargo cult. That's the actual right tool. Analytics. Heavy OLAP, columnar scans across billions of rows for dashboards. That workload fights your transactional workload for the same buffers. A dedicated columnar store earns its keep there. And the team test cuts across all of it. If you have engineers whose job is to own that system and keep it healthy, the operational cost I just spent 2 minutes attacking is a cost you've already chosen to pay. On purpose, with your eyes open. The point was never Postgres for everything forever. The point is that you should be forced to justify each separate system against extreme scale or a dedicated owner, and right now, for 5 of your 6 boxes, you can't. So you don't rip out 5 systems on a Friday and pray, because that's how you lose a weekend, take 3 customer-facing incidents, and come back to the same 6 boxes on Monday, now with fresh reasons to keep all of them. You consolidate in the order of lowest risk and highest relief, and you measure as you go. Start with the queue and the cache. These are the easy wins because they hold data you were already willing to lose or rebuild. Move your job queue to skip locked first. It removes a whole broker and its A-key semantics. And if it misbehaves, you've lost background jobs, not customer records. Then collapse the cache into unlogged tables and listen, notify. 2 boxes gone, and you haven't touched anything irreplaceable. Search and vector come next because they're derived data. Your documents already live in Postgres. The search index and the embeddings are just views onto that truth. Build the tsvector index and the pgvector column alongside the existing systems, run both in parallel, compare results on real queries, and cut over only when Postgres matches what users were already getting. Nothing is irreversible until you delete the old box, so delete it last. And measure the right thing. Don't measure whether Postgres is microseconds slower on a single query. It might be, and it won't matter. Measure the thing that was actually eating you. The count of systems on your on-call rotation, the lines of reconciliation and outbox code you get to delete, the number of distinct failure models a new engineer has to learn before they can ship a line. Watch those numbers fall. That's the win. That's what maturity actually looks like on a graph. So go back to the 6 boxes from the start. 6 lights, 6 pagers, 6 engineers asleep until their alert fires. And now you know that 5 of those lights are wired to work one box already does, and has done for years, while a slogan from 2011 kept the other 5 plugged in. Maturity is not collecting systems. Maturity is deleting them. The complexity you don't need is not sophistication. It's debt with better branding. Every system you add is a system you have to defend at 3 in the morning, and most of yours are defending territory Postgres already holds. But here's the catch, and it's the real reason most teams never do this. To consolidate into Postgres, you have to actually use Postgres. You have to write the skip locked, the containment operator, the cosine distance operator, the tsvector. And that's where almost everyone stops. Because there's something underneath the fear, and I think it's this. An ORM that writes the SQL for you is an ORM that also hides what SQL can do. You call a method, you get an object back, and you never see the query, so after a few years of that, you stop knowing what you don't know. The 5 boxes felt like expertise. They had names, documentation, Slack channels full of people who knew the tuning parameters. One raw SQL query felt like guessing. So teams kept the systems they understood and grew afraid of the one engine that was already sitting underneath all of them. That's the wall. Not SQL being hard, the ORM convincing you it is. So before you delete a single system, go fix that. Go find out what your ORM has been hiding from you. That's the next file. SQL is not hard, your ORM is lying to you. Watch that one, then come back and delete 5 databases.